paper 1 economics. So surely you're all going to enjoy the lesson. Okay, right. So now let's check section A. So section A is compulsory. So remember, you are given 30 marks questions, and the expectation is to spend 20 minutes on this particular type of questions. Okay, question 1. Various options are provided as possible answers to the following questions. Choose the correct answer and write only the letter. An example is given inside the bracket where variables A up to D they are given as an example of the options that you're supposed to choose from. Okay, right. So now let's check 1.1.1. Short-term savings and loans are traded on the money market. So remember, money market is part of the financial market where short-term loans are actually traded. And remember, capital market and money market, they all fall under the umbrella of our financial market, where capital market takes into account the trading of long-term loans. Okay, right. So now let's check 1.1.2. Job advertising space is an example of a leading indicator. Remember, leading indicator is an indicator that changes before an economy can actually change. Okay, right. So now let's check 1.1.3. The deficit rule states that shortages on the budget should not exceed 3% of the gross domestic product. So now this is a benchmark rule for each and every country. Okay, right. So now let's check 1.1.4. So now 1.1.4 reads as follows. The ratio of a country's export price index to its import price index is known as terms of trade. So meaning in this regard, our appropriate answer is going to be C. Okay, right. So now let's move on to 1.1.5. 1.1.5 reads as follows. A trade policy that restricts certain imports to prevent unfair foreign competition for local industries is called protectionism, which is option A. Okay, right. So now let's check 1.1.6. The level of a country's standard of living is measured by per capita GDP because we are checking the individual's income or standard of living. Okay, right. So now let's move on to the next question. So now the next question we have 1.1.7 that reads as follows. An international benchmark criterion for regional development that requires democratic decision-making and transparency is called good governance, meaning our appropriate answer in this regard is going to be A. So now let's move on to the next question, which is 1.1.8. It says the probable number of years that a person will live after birth is known as a life expectancy, meaning the appropriate answer in this regard is going to be B. Okay, right. So now let's move on to the next question, which is 1.2. So now 1.2 reads as follows. Choose a description from column B that matches the item in column A. Write only the letter A to I as an example given next to the question numbers 1.21 to 1.2.8 in your answer book provided. Okay, right. So now grade 12s, we have column A and column B. So remember, whenever you are dealing with this type of questions, you should always make sure that you understand the concepts in column A or the terms in column A. So now also you must bear in mind that, so in column B, we have the description, the characteristics, as well as the functions of the concepts that appear in column A. Okay, right. So now 1.2.1 reads as follows, vector cost. So now vector cost in this regard, we are going to check the amount paid for the resources used to produce goods and services. So it means our appropriate answer in this regard is going to be F. So now let's check 1.2.2. It says that moving average. So now moving average methods used to smooth out short-term fluctuations in a time series. So in this regard, our appropriate answer is going to be G. So now the next one, we have 1.2.3, medium-term expenditure framework, a 3-year rolling expenditure and revenue protection for the government. So in this regard, our appropriate answer is going to be A. So now let's check 1.2.4 special drawing board. So now this one, our appropriate answer is a form of credit granted by the International Monetary Fund to countries that experience balance of payments deficit. So our appropriate answer in this regard is going to be B. So now boycotts. So now this one of boycotts, we are actually going to check the voluntary measures taken not to trade with a certain country. So it means our appropriate answer in this regard is going to be I. Okay, right. So now let's check what 1.2.6 National Development Plan. So our appropriate answer aims to eliminate poverty and race inequality by 2030. So meaning our appropriate answer in this regard is going to be C. So let's move on to 1.2.7. So it reads as follows: a special development initiative. So appropriate answer in this regard is going to be attract infrastructure investments to neglected and underdeveloped areas. So it means that our appropriate answer in this regard is going to be A. So now the last one, but not the least, we have 1.2.8, where we have urbanization. So now this urbanization is in line with the process of the movement of people from rural areas to the cities or towns. So now it means our appropriate answer in this regard is going to be age. Okay, grade 12. So now these are the answers for our question 1.2. Let's kindly move on to the next question, which is 1.3. Okay, right. So now 1.3 reads as follows. Give one term for each of the following descriptions. Write only the term next to the question numbers 1.3.1 to 1.3.6 in the answer book or abbreviations, acronyms, and examples will not be accepted. Meaning in this regard, whenever you give abbreviations, acronyms, and examples, they are actually not going to be accepted at all. Okay, so now let's check 1.3.1. The flow of goods and services and vectors of production among the participants in an economy. So now this is nothing but circular flow model. This is circular flow model. Circular flow model. Okay, right. So now let's check out 1.3.2, a curve that illustrates the inverse relationship between unemployment and inflation rate. So this is nothing but Phillips curve. This is Phillips curve. Okay, right. So now let's check 1.3.3. The transfer of functions and ownership of entities from the private sector to the public sector. This is nothing but nationalism, nationalization. Okay, so now 1.3.4, it reads as follows: financial support in the form of cash payments provided by the government to domestic producers. This is nothing but producer subsidy. This is nothing but producer subsidy. So let's check 1.3.5, industries that employ more labor than a capital in the production process. This is nothing but labor intensive. Okay, right. So now the last but not the least, we have 1.3.6, the economic indicator used to measure the cost of living. This is consumer price index. Consumer price index, which is CPI. Remember, you're not supposed to write CPI. The moment you write CPI, you're going to score 0 marks. Okay, right. So now we are done with section A, grade 12. Let's kindly move on to the next section, which is section B. And remember, under section B, you are given three questions. The expectation is to answer only 2 questions, of which each question carries 40 marks. So both questions sum up to 80 marks under section B. Okay, right. So now, section B in particular, we are going to check question 2. So question 2 reads as follows. Answer the following questions as 2.1.1 and 2.1.2. So 2.1.1, name any 2 methods used to calculate gross domestic product. So remember the methods that we have production method, we also have income method, and lastly, we have expenditure method. Okay, right. So now let's move on to Question 2.1.2. It reads as follows: how can competition stimulate aggregate supply in an economy? So competition between firms reduces inefficiency. So this reduces costs and therefore increases output. We are saying that competition between firms reduces inefficiency. So hence, this reduces costs, and therefore increases output. Therefore increases output. Okay, right. We are saying that competition between firms reduces inefficiency. So now this reduces costs and therefore increases output. Okay, right. So now let's move on to the next question, which is 2.2. So 2.2 reads as follows: study the extract below and answer the questions that follow. Public sector failure. In South Africa, many public entities suffer from management failure. Organizations are inefficient in delivering services because they lack a skilled labor force to compete or complete tasks successfully. So now this results in services being of poor quality, such as hospitality, running out of medicines. So these are cases where funds are left unspent even when there is a desperate need from communities. So now this means that money is returned to the national treasury at the end of the fiscal year. Okay, right. So now let's check 2.2.1. 2.2.1, identify one reason for public sector failure in the above extract. So that is a lack of skilled labor force is an answer. Lack of skilled labor force. Okay. So 2.2.2, name the level of the government that is responsible for providing services such as reviews remover. This is nothing but local government. This is local government. Okay, right. Briefly describe the term accountability. So now accountability is being self-aware, noticing and admitting mistakes and accepting the responsibility and consequences of the actions. Okay, right. You're saying that accountability means being self-aware, noticing and admitting mistakes, and accepting the responsibility, and consequences of the actions Saying that accountability, being self-aware, noticing and admitting mistakes, and accepting the responsibility and consequences of the actions. So that is the meaning of accountability. So now let's kindly move on to the next question, which is 2.2.4. Explain the effect of public sector failure on the allocation of resources. So now resources in this regard, they are going to be wasted, meaning no optimal allocation of resources is going to take place. So we are saying that resources are wasted, no optimal, allocation of resources. Okay, right. So now let's move on to the next question, which is 2.2.5. So now 2.2.5 reads as follows. Why is it necessary for the government to impose taxes on demerit goods? Remember demerit goods? We talk of those goods that are very dangerous or harmful or toxic to be consumed by the human beings. So now in this regard, the moment the government imposes tax on demerit goods, it means that it's going to discourage consumption of demerit goods due to the fact that demerit goods are harmful to human beings' consumption. Okay, right? You're saying that to discourage consumption of demerit goods. Also, we are saying that due to the fact that demerit goods are harmful to human consumption. Okay, right, grade 12s. So now let's move on to the next question. So now the next question is 2.4. So now 2.4 reads as follows. It reads as follow 2.4. Study the graph below and answer the questions that follow. So we have the multiplier effect in a two-sector economy. Remember, in a two-sector economy, that's where we have a household as well as the firms, and we have two markets where we have the product market as well as the vector market. Okay, right. So now let's check 2.3.1. It says identify the value of the marginal propensity to consume in the graph above. So it means in this regard, this is our value for marginal propensity to consume, which is 0.5. So now let's move on to 2.3.2. Name any one participant in a two-sector model. So we have the households. We have households. Also, we have what? We have firms or businesses. Okay, right. So now briefly, what describe the term autonomous consumption. When we talk of autonomous consumption, we refer to spending on goods and services that is independent of income. So now it means that the spending on buying of goods and services normally takes place regardless whether a person is having an income or not. Okay, right. So now we're saying that this is nothing but spending on goods and services, spending on goods and services that is independent, that is an independent of income. Okay, right. So now explain the relationship between the marginal propensity to save and the value of the multiplier. So now there is an inverse relationship between marginal propensity to save and the multiplier. Saying that an inverse, there is an inverse relationship between marginal propensity to save and multiplier. Okay, right. So now use the information in the above graph to calculate the change in national income. So if you check the given set of the information, the change that we are going to talk about is actually here from Y to Y1. So it means that our change in national income is going to be Y1 minus Y. So now where we actually have our y1 being equivalent to 30, being equivalent to 30 plus 0.5y, then we multiply by 30 because The y-intercept in this regard, we check the y-intercept. In this regard, we have the y-intercept as 30 and the y-intercept as 20. So it means in this regard, then we are going to have our y1 as 45. Then we are going to have our y being equivalent to 20 plus 0.5, then multiply by 20. So the appropriate answer is going to be 30. So now, therefore, our change in y is going to be y1 minus y, which is going to be 45 minus 30. Then our appropriate answer in this regard is going to be 15. So it means that now 15 is going to be our answer. Okay, right. So now let's move on to 2.4. And also we are going to check our 2.5. Okay, right. So now let's check our 2.4. So now 2.4 reads as follows: discuss the exogenous monetary explanations of a business cycle. So the monetarists argue that the major causes of economic fluctuations is inappropriate government policies and undesirable changes in the money supply. And also they continue to say that economic growth is determined by the supply of available natural resources of production, including technology. Also, they continue to argue that markets are inherently stable. Forces of demand and supply will bring market to equilibrium. Also, they believe that no government intervention is needed. Only the market forces of demand and supply can actually stimulate the flow of goods and services. Okay, right? You are saying that monetarists argue that the major causes of economic fluctuations is inappropriate government policies and undesirable changes in the money supply. Also, you're saying that economic growth is determined by the supply of available natural resources of production, including technology. Okay, right? Also, you're saying that market are inherently stable forces of demand and supply. Forces of demand and supply will bring market to equilibrium. Okay, right. So now they believe that no government intervention needed. No government, no govern, no government intervention needed. Government intervention needed. Okay, right. So now let's check 2.5. How can the macroeconomic objective of price stability positively influence the South African economy? So stable prices improves investor confidence and attracts direct foreign investments. Also, it implies that prices do not change much over time. Progressive tax system used in South Africa, meaning the higher the income, then the higher the tax to be paid. So also able to promote economic growth and development since prices are stable and inflation is very, very low. Okay, right. Saying that stable prices improve investors' confidence, investors' confidence, and attract foreign investment. Also, said that it implies that prices do not change much over time. Then also progressive tax system is used in South Africa, meaning the higher the income, the more tax is charged. Okay, right? And also saying that able to promote economic growth and development. Economic growth and development since prices are stable and inflation very low. Okay, right, Kritov. So now let's move on to the next question. So the next question, we have question 3. So now question 3 reads as follow. We have economic pursuits. So now 3.1 answer the following questions. So now 3.1.1 reads as follow. Name any 2 countries that are part of the South African Development Community, which is SADC. So now the 2 countries, we have Lesotho and South Africa. We have Lesotho, and also we have South Africa. Okay, right. So now let's move on to the next question, which is 3.1.2. So now it reads as follow. How can broad-based Black economic empowerment help to promote industrial development? So, okay, it promotes economic inclusion through preferential procurement, which requires companies to actually prioritize suppliers by Black people. Okay, right? You're saying that it promotes economic inclusion, economic inclusion through preferential, procurement, preferential procurement, which requires companies to prioritize suppliers by Black people. Okay, right. Okay, so now let's move on to 3.2. So 3.2 reads as follow. Study the extract below and answer the questions that follow. South Africans extract below and answer the questions that follow. South Africa's industrial development strategies. In recognizing the importance of manufacturing in the economy, two strategies were developed, namely the National Research and Development Strategy and the Integrated Manufacturing Strategy. So South Africa has set a target of 1.5% of gross domestic product expenditure on research and development. However, these investments decreased from 0.75% in 2018-19 to 0.6% in 2021-2022. So now 3.2.1 reads as follows. Identify the industrial development strategy that aims to improve the competitiveness of the manufacturing sector, which is what we have, the integrated manufacturing strategy. Integrated manufacturing strategy. Okay, right. So now let's check 3.2.2. Name the government department that is responsible for name the government department that is responsible for promoting industrial development. That is trade, industry, and competition. The department is trade, industry, and competition. Okay, right. So now let's check 3.2.3. So now 3.2.3 reads as follow. So now it says that what I briefly described the term duty-free incentives. So now this duty-free incentives is when purchasing an item without paying import, sales, value added, or any other tax. Okay, right? You're saying that purchasing an item without paying import duties, sales, value added, or other taxes. Okay, right. So now let's check 3.2.4. Explain the importance of corridors in promoting regional development. So now in promoting regional development, corridors diversifies and improves livelihoods by making trade, communications, and service more efficient. Okay, right. You're saying that this can actually take place if it diversifies and improves, diversifies and improves livelihoods by making trade, communication, and services more efficient. And services more efficient. Okay, right. So now let's move on to 3.2.5. How can South African business benefit from the National Research and Development Strategy? Okay, right. Research results give businesses a means to find actually issues people have and ways to address them. Also gather knowledge to create new product or discover new ways to actually improve their existing products and services. Okay, right? Saying that research results give businesses a means to find issues, people have and ways to address them. You're right. Also saying that gather knowledge to create new products or discover new ways to improve, new ways to improve the existing products and services. Okay, right, great talks. So now let's move on to the next question. So now the next question, we have 3.3. So now 3.3 reads as follows. Study the graph below and answer the questions that follow. South Africa's labor productivity growth. So now let's check 3.3.1. Identify the percentage changes in South Africa's labor productivity in the fourth quarter of 2022. So now if we check, we have negative 8%. Okay, right? Stage one are the economic indicator that relates to productivity. So now we have a remuneration of workers. Okay, briefly describe the term economic indicator. So an economic indicator, we actually refer to statistical data on the performance and trends of economic variables over time. So now we're saying that this is nothing but statistical data on the performance and the trends of economic variable of economic variables over the period of time. Okay, right. So now let's check out 3.3.4. Why is access to healthcare services important to the labor force? Why? Because healthy citizens are more productive, earn more, consume more, and work longer. Saying that because healthy citizens are more productive, consume more, and work a little longer. Okay, right. So now let's check 3.3.5. So it reads as follows. How can a decrease in labor productivity impact the economy? Okay, right. So there's going to be low morale within workforce. Also, it produces more goods and services for the same amount of relative work. Okay, right. You're saying that you have low morale within the workforce. And also we are saying that it actually produces more goods and services for the same amount of relative work, Okay, right. So now let's check 3.4 and also we are going to check 3.5. Okay, right. So now let's check what 3.4 has in store for us. Discuss the advantages of import substitution for South African economy. So now it makes a country self-sufficient. Also increase demand for local goods, which can actually translate into economic growth and development for South Africa. Helps in creation of employment opportunities, also to protect, strengthen, and grow local industry. Okay, right. We are saying that to protect, strengthen, and grow local businesses. And also we said it makes a country self-sufficient, self-sufficient, and also helps in creation of jobs. And lastly, Saying that increased demand for local, saying that increased demand for local goods which can translate into economic growth and development in SA. Okay, right. So now let's check 3.5. 3.5 reads as follow. Analyze the challenges faced by South Africa in promoting industrial development through the various policies. Okay, right. So now overcoming profound inequalities while building a more dynamic or productive and competitive economy. Triple challenges: poverty, inequality, and employment. Also, the policies include investment facilitation, trade technology, small business promotion, strategic and informational leadership competition, and labor policy. Okay, we are saying that policies include investment facilitation, trade, technology, small business promotion, strategic, and informational leadership, and informational leadership, competition, and labor market policies. Okay, right. So we are saying that triple challenges poverty, inequality, and unemployment. Okay, saying that overcoming profound inequalities while building more dynamic, productive, more dynamic, productive, and competitive economy. Okay, right. So now let's move on to the next question. The next question, we have question 4. So now question 4 reads as follow. Name two economic indicators that's related to what actually employment. So now in this regard, we have unemployment rate, also economically active population. We are saying that we have unemployment rate, and also we have economically active, economically active population. Okay, right. So now let's check 4.1.2. How can the government achieve the macroeconomic objective of economic equality or equity in South Africa? Okay, by creating a more fair and equitable distribution of income and welfare. They are saying that by creating a more fair and equitable distribution of income and wow. Okay. Right. So now let's move on to 4.2. So now 4.2 reads as follow. Study the table below and answer the questions that follow. Business cycles of South Africa since 1999. So we have the upswings information and we also have the duration, also the downswings information and the duration. So now the question says, in particular 4.2.1, identify the period in which South Africa experienced the longest downswings. So now they experienced the longest downswings between the period of December 2013 to April 2017. Okay, right. So now let's check what 4.2.2. Name the turning point of a business cycle associated with the highest level of inflation. This is going to be a peak or a boom. Okay, right. So now let's move on to the next question. The next question is in line with amplitude. So now amplitude is referred to vertical difference between the trough or a peak and the trend line. So you're saying that this is a vertical line or difference between a trough or peak, and a trend line. Okay, right. So now let's check the meaning of, let's check 4.2.4. Explain the importance of the trend line in the forecasting of business cycle. Remember what trend line is used to measure the long-term economic growth. So this is used to measure long-term economic growth. Okay, so now let's check 4.2.5. How can an economy recession influence households in the economy? Low purchasing power of the household and also low standard of living for household. Low purchasing power for households. And also we are saying that low standard of living for households. Okay, right. So now let's move on to the next question. The next question we have 4.3. So 4.3, study the cartoon below and answer the questions that follow. So now the international trade restrictions. So 4.3.1, identify trade restriction that refers to a tax levied on imported goods. So this is nothing but a tariff or tariffs. So now the next one here, 4.3.2. So 4.3.2, name the international organization that promotes the removal of trade restriction between countries. So this is World Trade Organization. World Trade Organization. Okay, right. So now, briefly describe the term embargo. When you talk of embargo, so now embargo is a trade restrictions adopted by the government as an economic sanction. You're saying that this is nothing but trade restriction adopted by government as an economic sanction. Okay, right. So now explain the importance of protecting infant industries from foreign competition. We are actually to promote local production of goods and services. To promote local production of goods and services by local firms. Okay, right. So now let's move on to 4.3.5. How can the economy benefit from specializing in the production of a specific product? Okay, so the moment an economy specializes in the production of a specific product, it means that there's going to be enhancement of skills, enhancement of workforce skills, and also saying that mass production of specialized goods and services. Okay, right. So now let's move on to 4.4. Okay, right. So now 4.4 reads as follow. Discuss the social indicators that relate to nutrition. Okay, so now here we have access to safe drinking water, access to sanitation facilities, health expenditure, also child malnutrition, and overweight of children. Okay, right? Access to safe drinking water, and also the same that access to sanitation, facilities, and also you're saying that child malnutrition and overweight children, as well as also health expenditures. Okay, right. So now let's check 4.5. It reads as follows. How can an increase in injections contribute positively towards the South African economy? So now the moment injections increase, it means that there's going to be creation of employment, payment of tax by household and firms, more of exports than imports, mass production of goods and services. Okay, right? You are saying that creation of employment, you're right? And also we are saying that payment of tax by households and firms. And then we are saying that you have more of exports than imports. Okay, right? And also, we are going to have mass production of goods and services. Okay, right. So now let's move on to section C. So section C, we're actually going to check question 5. So question 5, it's in line with what? It's in line with international trade. So now, grade 12, remember, when we have the questions like this, the structure of an economic paper in regard with the essay, you should just write your introduction, and remember this is 2 marks, and also your conclusion, and remember this conclusion also is 2 marks. So now this is going to be 26 marks is going to be your main body, and now this one of 10 marks is going to be your additional part. So this is your additional part. Okay, right. So now let's check question what? Let's check question 5. So now question 5, the introduction. So when we talk of the international trade under introduction, international trade is nothing but the interaction of a different set of countries in line with the buying and selling of goods and services. So that is the definition of international trade, and it is actually classified under our introduction part. So now let's go to the main body. When we get to the main body, we're supposed to give the reasons for international trade. Okay, right. So now let's check what are these reasons for international trade. So now when we check reasons for international trade, we have demand reasons and as well as supply reasons. So now I'm going to check the demand reasons for international trade. So now demand reasons for international trade, we are going to check the level of economic development and income. So meaning the need for basic necessities such as food in developing countries may result in more goods being imported. And also we check the differences in consumption patterns, meaning a poor country will have a higher demand for basic goods and services, but a lower demand for luxury goods. So we also check different consumer wants and preferences, meaning a modern society demands a wide variety of goods and preferences. So we also check the international migration. Different cultures, religions, lifestyles of our migrants will result in certain goods and services being important. So now we also check different levels of technical development, meaning the demand for the latest technologies which are not available in all countries must be actually imported. So now we also check the cost of production. A country may not be able to produce goods at the lowest possible cost. Okay, right, grade 12. So now let's check also other reasons. So now we are going to check the supply reason for this regard. So under the supply reason, we are going to check the natural resources. So now these are resources
that are not evenly distributed across all the economies or countries. So now also you're going to check the labor force. So labor force differs between different countries in terms of skills, knowledge, training, quality, quantity, and also the cost. So now we also check the availability of capital. So in some countries, they need to modernize the industries and economies with advanced machinery equipment, but cannot manufacture this equipment because they lack the capital to do so. So now we also have lack of entrepreneurship. So meaning those countries that have good entrepreneurial skills offer more goods and services for trade. We also check climate conditions, meaning these countries make it possible for others to produce certain goods at lower prices than other countries. So now we also check technological resources, meaning the developmental levels and innovation processes of countries will also differ as a result of other countries that may have actually abundance while others may not. Okay, right. So now also check the specialization where most of this surplus production gets exported to other countries, and the revenue earned from these exports can be used to finance their imports. Okay, right. So now we are done with our main body and international trade. So now let's check the impact of weaker currency on South African economy. The moment the currency of South Africa is very weak compared to other currency, it means that so now South Africa is going to have more of the tourists, because for tourists to come to South Africa, it means that they are going to have more of the money, or a lot of money, because their currency is more stronger than South African currency. So it means for them to avoid buying of goods and services, it is going to be very affordable and very cheap to them. Okay, right. But now it is going to be very difficult if South Africans now want to go to other countries for tourism maybe, or leisure time, or also for work purposes. So in that regard, it means that it's now going to be very expensive for South Africans, because now South African currency is very weak compared to other currencies. Okay, right. So now in conclusion, you should remember, write all your understanding or your opinion. So meaning under conclusion, can just say efficiency determines the supply of goods and services produced at lower prices, and also reduces opportunity cost of acquiring them. Okay, right. So now we are done with question 5. Let's move on to question 6. Okay, right. So now question 6 reads as follows. Discuss in detail the demand side approach in promoting economic growth and development in South Africa. Analyze the importance of promoting small businesses for the South African economy. So in this regard, you should have our introduction as well as a conclusion. And this is going to be our main body. And then this is going to be our additional part. Okay, right. So now under our introduction, we can actually define economic growth and development. When we talk of the economic growth, we refer to improvement in terms of the production of goods and services by businesses. But when it comes to economic development, we refer to improvement in terms of the standard of living by a household. So now let's check what the detail in terms of the demand side approach in promoting economic growth and development in South Africa. Okay, right. So now we are going to check the monetary policy. So now monetary policy in what engages in interest rate changes, meaning lower interest rates will encourage loans from banks. Higher interest rates should encourage investments to the country. We also check open market transaction. We actually say that to encourage credit creation, the South African Reserve Bank buys securities in the open market money then flows into the banking system. So now we also check moral persuasion, where the South African Reserve Bank can sell security papers such as treasury bills and government bonds, which will drain excess liquidity, and banks will actually have less money to lend. So now let's check fiscal policy. So now we are going to check progressive personal income tax. Higher income earners are taxed at higher rates than lower income earners. So we are also going to check wealth taxes, meaning properties such as houses, offices, factory buildings are taxed on the values of the property. We're also going to check cash benefits, meaning old age pensions, disability grants, child support grants, unemployment insurance are important cash grants, social security payments. These grants alleviate poverty and provide for basic needs and wants. So we also check benefits in kind. So I mean these include the provisions of healthcare, education, school meals, protection, municipal services, as well as infrastructure improvement. So now we also check other redistribution. We have public works programs provide employment, and strategic integrated projects provide employment subsidies and cash benefits such as loans and the likes. Okay, right. So now we also check land restitution and land redistribution. So now this purpose of land restitution is to return land to those who lost it due to apartheid laws. Also, land redistribution focus on land for residential town and productive farm use only. So now we're also going to check property subsidies. Subsidies help the poorer people to acquire ownership of fixed residential property. So many the government's housing subsidy scheme provide funding to eligible persons earning less than 3.5 per month. Remember, they changed the minimum wage rate is now 4,000 instead of 3.5. Okay, right. So now we are done with main body. Let's check our additional part. Analyze the importance of promoting small businesses for South African economy. So up to this far, the South African economy has managed to improve the small businesses through the initiative of SMMEs, which is small, medium, micro enterprises. So through that initiative, South Africa has been funding infant or emerging entrepreneurs. Okay, right. So now in conclusion, we can actually say that in conclusion, what we can say in conclusion, imports are important to South African economy as they provide consumers with a wider choice of goods and services to choose from. On the other hand, they provide capital goods and intermediate goods such as machinery equipment, chemicals, petroleum products, scientific instruments, and vehicle spares. Okay, right. So now we are done with our question 6. Surely, grade 12s, you did enjoy this lesson. Thank you very much. Shalom. May all God bless you. Thank you very, very much. Okay, right, grade 12s. We are going to discuss paper 1 economics. So surely you're all going to enjoy the lesson. Okay, right. So now let's check section A. So section A is compulsory. So remember, you are given 30 marks questions, and the expectation is to spend